Well, we like to start out with a funny story from the service. And if you need an example, we can give you one,
Oh,
but
geez.
it
Uh,
doesn't have to be.
yeah, I have to think on that one. What's your question two? Because I got to make sure one, it's appropriate, and two, I got to think of one truthfully. And I know there's been several. Um, you know, some I probably don't want to put out there, but let's go with question two, and I'll come back to question one there on that.
Okay. Um, what were what were the most important veteran benefits that you've utilized in your path to where you've gotten to now?
So when I joined the military, my upbringing was not. My parents are outstanding; they're good people, but I didn't come from a lot of wealth, and I knew after high school I would have to seek some type of higher education, but my parents couldn't afford that. So I joined the service at the age of 17, between my junior and senior year of high school. So I went to basic training, um, and that might lead into my funny story. But I went to basic training uh, in my summer of my junior senior year. So when all the kids are, you can imagine high school kids what they do in the summer, and I'm here, doing push-ups and you know shooting rifles and basic training stuff, throwing grenades and coming back. But um, the benefits I utilized was, one, it paid for my education. So I've exhausted my GI Bill. I've utilized the tuition assistance program, which is another financial for education platform. I've used the healthcare that the service provides. I've used that at points in my life. Um, there's so many benefits that the military service can add. Not only the skills and all that other stuff that they teach you, but the benefits on top of that. And I've used them all. GI Bill, like I said, tuition assistance. I've used the healthcare provided. Um, is that pretty much? But let's go into my funny story because that came to me. So I got two of them that came to mind. So
All right.
you know, when I was going, I got an identical twin brother. Okay, so he didn't join the service. So I went through boot camp, and we're on our last day of graduation at boot camp. Okay, and it's like the drill instructors are like, do not put your civilian clothes on, blah blah blah, and whatever. So my brother shows up, and he's in civilian clothes, and my drill sergeant is about ready to let loose on him, thinking it was me, right? So he walked up to my brother, and he was about ready to get in his face, and I just happened to walk on his side, and it caught it right at time. So my brother, like, and my brother, it would have been funny. I wish it would have went
Saved
all the
him.
way through, yeah, it would have been so funny if he would have got his butt chewed for really no reason. And Seeing that all play out. But no, that's one military funny story that's kind of related. Um, it's I've got quite a few, and unfortunately, I wasn't much of a goof off, so I did what I needed to do. So I don't have any of those extreme stories that I'd like to share. There's a few, but I kind of took my career pretty serious because I knew, the opportunities and my mindset where it was. So, but yeah, I hope that answered your questions. So what else? What else you guys got?
You found H2H helmets to hard hats through like coming back through the yellow ribbon. So were you kind of doing both then for a bit? Like, was that your, I guess, like your civilian side job, and then you also still had the National Guard?
Yeah. So in 2003, 4, and 5, I was on a 24-month deployment. And then I came home in 2005. And they do it a little different now, but on the end of it, they call what the yellow ribbon ceremonies they are. So basically, it's like a debrief and out processing to kind of help veterans, transition back into that civilian life and let them know what resources are available. And that's where Helmets to Hard Hats had their presentation at. So I came back, I was right back into my civilian career, being an electrician, wiring houses on the residential level. And that's kind of how that works. So I still had my civilian employment, came right back into my civilian employment after I came off that deployment, and just attended a yellow ribbon ceremony that introduced me to the program.
Yeah, I mean that's a great option for a lot of reserves and National Guard guys to kind of
Mhm.
keep the civilian and the military career going.
Yeah, it's when I joined the military, I never, ever thought I'd be in for until retirement. And now here I'm in year 22,
Man,
um, and been deployed 3 times and this and that. And you know, I've thought about retirement, came real close one time to just stepping away right after I passed the 20. But I tell you what, there's so much, you invested time, money, and truthfully support from my family. Like, it's kind of hard to give up, that you're like, I'm still able, to do it. I'm, physically fit, I'm mentally in the game. And I have a lot to offer the Guard with my past education in the construction field. And I feel like I can still make a difference. So, I never thought I'd be in for 20 years. And now I'm looking at it going, hey, 30 doesn't sound too bad. So, and it's only 8 years away. So it's like, okay, what's 8 to 22, right? So,
yeah.
we'll see. I just one day at a time, it's still on the table. And, it just seems like every time I keep pursuing something a little bit deeper, another opportunity, comes available. And that's kind of the advice I would give to any young person is, you don't know what an opportunity is going to lead to. And it may not, you don't know. And the only thing is everything matters. I can tell people that, so when you do something, do it to the best of your potential and you don't know what another door or doors are going to open beyond that. Cause that's definitely, been the light of my career, military and civilian. So, and they get and it's kind of weird. Mine go hand in hand. My education in the civilian sector definitely plays a role in my military role. So, which people appreciate that in uniform because when you get both worlds mixed together, that's kind of the beauty of a civilian soldier. Someone in the reserve component, National Guard or whatever, is that they have those civilian credentials or education, and they have that military demeanor that they can pull them all together and improve upon both organizations. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because something I've observed in the reserve versus when I've been around active duty is your E1, E2, all the way up through whatever rank you want, but magnified at the junior enlisted level. They're different animals in the reserve because they have this other civilian job, some form of education, whether it's college or trade school or just on the job training. They've gotten some experience dealing with people and some other skills, soft or otherwise, versus active duty. That they live and breathe the Army daily, and that is an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing. I'm glad to hear you bring up as well. Not even necessarily positive or negative, but just an interesting difference between the two.
Yeah, I've and I'll give you a personal example. When I've been an electrician, I've built, I've wired everything. And I say this half-heartedly, but it is kind of true. I've built everything from outhouses to multi-story hospitals. And I've been involved in all that sector and different trades, knowing how they all intersect. Because fortunately for electricians, we're usually one of the first ones on the site. We're usually one of the last ones to leave. So we understand how different trades and different systems have to interconnect and how everything applies. So when you take something of that magnitude and you take it to a military project, there's great value, not only in the design aspect, but the execution of it and showing other people maybe tricks of the trade or ways to save time or money. And the government's all about saving some money here and there when we can do it. So, so it's kind of a cool two-hat perspective that you get to do.
What would you say were maybe your one or maybe a couple of your biggest challenges you had to face and kind of how you overcame them?
I'd have to go with one wholeheartedly is, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but when you lose someone, that's probably the number one challenge. Not so much, during operations, but when you come home, that I know of one story, and I don't want to evolve too much on it, but that one hurts every day. The other thing is leaving the family. My kids have grown up in this atmosphere. My wife's been with me well before I joined the military, so she's come to custom, and she has learned. She's an independent person, so she's learned that I come and go, and she keeps the home front locked down. But leaving the family would be number two, and then number one by far is losing someone in uniform. Not only during operations, but definitely when you get home. I think that one even hurts worse because you don't have as many restrictions when you get home. It hits a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So those would be the two toughest challenges. You have to get back in the saddle. You have to drive on and move forward. But those are the toughest, I would say, personal challenges. I think if we're talking about more just day-to-day living, your mental capacity, your physical ability can go well beyond your abilities of just wanting to quit. That's what I would pass on everyone. Push yourself. And then when you get tired of pushing yourself, just push a little bit more, because you can definitely go a lot further than you think. And that's I see it with a lot of people that they easily give up. And, I always call it, you're on the 5-yard line, you're on the 1-yard line, you're almost there, and just push through it. And good things will happen. So.
Definitely. Resiliency. I think MRC was one of the most, the best class that we got before our deployments, and just keeping that going, when you're away and when you're home. That's huge.
Yeah, for sure. You have to, take little steps, because little steps turn into big things, but and always take a minute for yourself. You have to do that. But, I agree with you. You got to have that resiliency and determination of what the end state is going to be. But keep a conscious pulse of yourself as well as you're going through that.
That's great advice. Yeah. Well, we love what you're doing, in the National Guard and with Helmets to Hardhats. So really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. You definitely given some good advice and pointed some things out. For instance, the GI Bill, you just can't cover that in a 20-minute episode, which we've already even had an episode on. And, but yeah, it's like, but I didn't know you could use that toward trade school. So that's really good information we didn't even plan on. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And then there's other veteran programs too. And it's slipping my mind right now. It's outside of the GI Bill, and it'll come to me as soon as we get off the phone. But there is other veteran assistant programs that you can use the skilled trades to, that fit other special scenarios. So there's other assistance, and people just need to keep in mind that, I know typically, when you leave military service, you're around the age of, 22, 23, 24. And the struggle part there is sometimes you're established. Some people have young families or, financial responsibilities. And that's where that GI Bill is really, really key, because that might be the simple bridge for that person, that veteran that we want to get employed and get them this career. But financially, they have to make ends meet. And that GI Bill is the good bridge to make them meet it when they first get started in this career.
We thank you for listening, and we hope you got something helpful out of this.
Right now, the best way to support us is to simply spread the word. If you know a fellow veteran who could use some resources to elevate their life, send them our way.
Until next time, remember to check your 0s, 5s, 10s, and 25s.